Have you ever felt the bitter taste of injustice? That feeling that no matter how hard you try, the rules of the game always seem to favor someone else? Maybe it was a promotion at work that went to someone less qualified but with the right connections. Maybe it was seeing someone born with privileges you never had, effortlessly achieving what takes you a lifetime of struggle. It's a wound that stings, a voice that whispers, "This isn't fair." What if I told you that voice is absolutely right? The world isn't fair. And what if I told you that your greatest battle isn't trying to change this immutable reality, but rather changing how you see it? Imagine if, instead of drowning in resentment, you found a life raft in acceptance. Not a passive, defeated acceptance, but one that empowers you, that frees you from the chains of comparison and bitterness. Let's explore this uncomfortable truth together. Let's understand why fighting against the unequal nature of the world is like trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. And more importantly, let's discover how, by embracing this reality, you can finally focus your energy on the only battlefield where you have total control: your inner world. Prepare to deconstruct one of the biggest illusions we've been sold since childhood. The journey to true freedom begins when we stop demanding justice from the universe and start building our own inner peace. If you're seeking a wisdom that doesn't ignore the world's pains but teaches you to navigate them with strength and serenity, this content is for you. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because with every video we'll uncover the truths that, though difficult, are the path to a more authentic and stronger life. The great lie of perfect meritocracy. Since we were young, we've been fed a very beautiful story. It's the fable of meritocracy: study, work hard, be a good person, and success will come. It's a comforting promise, isn't it? It gives us a sense of control, that the universe operates on a clear logic of cause and effect. If I do A, B, and C, the result will be X. But life, in its brutal complexity, rarely follows that script. I vividly remember a time in my career when I dedicated myself, body and soul, to a project. I worked through the night, sacrificed weekends, and delivered results beyond expectations. I firmly believed that this effort would be recognized, that the promotion I longed for was a natural and just consequence. When the announcement was made, the name called was not mine. The position went to someone who, though competent, had a skill I lacked: the ability to navigate the company's political waters, to be the right person in the right room at the right time. At that moment, the feeling wasn't just disappointment. It was a shattering. The fable of perfect meritocracy fell apart before my eyes. I had done everything right, but the result was wrong. What I didn't understand then is that hard work is just one of many variables in the complex equation of life. There's timing, luck, connections, the unconscious biases of decision makers, the country's economic situation, a family member's health, a tangle of factors completely outside our control. Recognizing this isn't an invitation to cynicism or laziness. On the contrary, it's an invitation to freedom. When you stop believing that effort alone guarantees a specific outcome, you start to value effort for what it is: an act of personal development, an exercise in discipline, an expression of your values. You work hard not because you expect a guaranteed external reward, but because it's the kind of person you choose to be. The reward becomes the act itself, the growth it provides. Peace comes when your sense of worth no longer depends on an external validation that is, by nature, inconsistent and often unfair. The birth lottery, the unequal starting line. Think of life as a marathon. The story we're told is that we all start at the same line. But the truth is, some are born just meters from the finish line, wearing state-of-the-art running shoes with an entire support team waiting for them. Others are born kilometers behind, barefoot, on rough terrain with not even a cup of water in sight. This is the birth lottery. I used to feel a pang of envy and even anger, seeing people who seemed to have everything handed to them on a silver platter. Born into stable families, with access to the best education, a powerful network, and financial security that allowed them to take risks that were unthinkable for me. My journey felt like a steep climb, while there seemed like a walk in the park. And the voice of injustice screamed, "Why them? Why not me?" This question, while understandable, is a dead end. It traps us in a cycle of bitterness and self-pity. There's no logical answer to it. There is no cosmic committee that distributes privileges based on prenatal merit. It's chance. Pure and simple. The country you're born in, the color of your skin, your gender, your parents' financial stability, your genetic predispositions to certain skills or diseases. None of this was chosen. It was given. The real shift happens when we stop looking at others' starting lines and start focusing on our own race. Accepting your starting line, however unfavorable, isn't about resigning yourself to it. It's about recognizing it as your starting point, your reality. From there, the question changes. Instead of, why is my starting point here? The question becomes, given this starting point, what is the best next step I can take? This change in perspective is incredibly powerful. It shifts the focus from what is immutable, the past, birth circumstances, to what is malleable, the present, your choices, your effort. Your journey may be harder, yes. That's a fact. But it's your journey. The lessons you'll learn on your steep climb, the strength you'll develop in every muscle, the resilience forged in adversity, these are riches no one can give you. They are achievements that belong uniquely to you. The injustice of the starting line does not nullify the dignity of your walk. The slow poison of resentment. When we cling to the idea that the world should be fair, every injustice we witness or suffer becomes an open wound. And if we don't care for it, that wound gets infected and turns into resentment. Resentment is one of the most toxic emotions a human can cultivate. It's like drinking poison every day and expecting the other person to die. I lived a period of my life steeped in this poison. Every success of someone I considered unworthy, every obstacle in my path that seemed unfair, fueled a flame of bitterness within me. I replayed the injustices in my mind like a movie on a loop. I blamed the system, blamed people, blamed luck. And while I did that, who was suffering? I was. My energy was consumed, my creativity dried up, my relationships became tense because I saw the world through a filter of negativity. Resentment blinds us to the opportunities right in front of us. It chains us to the past, making us relive the pain of injustice over and over, preventing us from moving forward. It's an anchor that keeps us stuck in the same place while the ship of life sails on. The philosopher Seneca, one of the great masters of Stoicism, teaches us that anger and resentment are brief madness. The problem is when we allow that madness to become our permanent state. The cure for resentment isn't easy, but it begins with a conscious decision, the decision to let go. To let go of the need for an apology that may never come. To let go of the hope that the past could be different. To let go of the belief that your happiness depends on an external repair. Forgiveness in this context isn't about the other person. It's not saying what happened was right. It's about you. It's an act of self-preservation. It's cutting the rope of the anchor that holds you to the bottom of the sea of bitterness and allowing yourself to rise to the surface to breathe the fresh air of the present. Accepting the injustice of what has passed is the first step to freeing yourself from its poison. The seductive trap of victimhood. There's a crucial difference between being a victim of an unfair event and adopting a victim mentality. Being a victim is a fact. Someone may have indeed been harmed by an action or circumstance. The victim mentality, however, is an identity. It's when you allow that event to define who you are. It's a seductive trap because, in a way, it absolves us of responsibility. When I was at the peak of my resentment over the lost promotion, I flirted dangerously with a victim mentality. My thoughts were, I am a victim of the unfair corporate system. There's nothing I can do. The world is against me. There was a sick comfort in this narrative. If the world was against me, then my failures weren't my fault. I didn't have to try harder, didn't have to look at my own flaws or areas for improvement. I had a perfect excuse for stagnation. The problem is that this mentality, while offering temporary relief from responsibility, robs us of all our power. A victim, by definition, is passive. It's someone to whom things happen. By identifying as a victim, you hand over control of your life to external circumstances and other people. You become a side character in your own story. The way out of this trap is an exercise the Stoics call taking responsibility for your own mind. Yes, the external event was unfair. That's a fact. But your interpretation of that event, the story you tell yourself about it, and the actions you take next, that is your responsibility. You can choose to see yourself as the poor soul who was wronged, or as the warrior who faced adversity and now needs to plot a new strategy. The change is subtle, but it transforms everything. The warrior doesn't deny the pain of the battle but uses it as fuel. He analyzes the field, learns from defeat, and prepares for the next move. He may not control the enemy army, but he controls himself. Abandoning the victim mentality is not denying your pain, it's refusing to be defined by it. It's reclaiming your role as the protagonist of your life, no matter how unfair the script may seem. The dichotomy of control, the Stoic master key. If there were a single tool I could offer to deal with the world's injustice, it would be this. The dichotomy of control, a fundamental principle of Stoicism, popularized by the philosopher Epictetus. The idea is both simple and revolutionary. In life, some things are within our control and others are not. The things not within our control include almost everything external to us. What other people think, say, or do, the economy, the weather, the past, luck, and yes, the fundamental fairness or unfairness of the world. Trying to control these things is a surefire recipe for frustration, anxiety, and suffering. The things within our control are very few, but they are the most important. Our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our actions, our will, our character. In short, our inner world. For years, I spent an immense amount of mental and emotional energy focusing on the wrong side of the equation. I worried about what my boss thought of me, I fumed in traffic, I lamented past decisions, and I raged against social injustices. I was trying to control the uncontrollable, and the result was a constant state of powerlessness. The practice of the dichotomy of control is a daily exercise in discernment. Faced with any situation, the first question to ask is, what in this situation is under my control and what is not? Let's go back to the promotion example. What was not under my control? My boss's final decision, the, perhaps subjective, criteria he used, the opinions of other colleagues, the company policies. What was under my control? The quality of my work, how I would react to the news, the decision to learn from the experience, the choice to look for other opportunities or to develop the skills I lacked, my attitude the next day. When you focus 100% of your energy on what you can control, something magical happens. The feeling of powerlessness vanishes and is replaced by a sense of agency. You stop being a leaf in the wind, blown about by circumstances, and you become the captain of your own ship. You may not control the stormy sea of life, but you control the rudder, the sails, and the map. And that, my friend, is true freedom. It is not the absence of storms, but the confidence that you can navigate them. Redefining success on an unfair board. Our society sells us a very narrow and external definition of success: wealth, fame, status, power. The problem is, as we've seen, the distribution of these things is deeply influenced by unfairness and luck. If your concept of success depends exclusively on these external factors, you're betting your happiness on a rigged game. Accepting the world's unfairness forces us into a much deeper and more rewarding task: redefining what it means to be successful. If victory in the external game is uncertain, perhaps the real game is the internal one. I began this redefinition exercise. What, for me, would be a successful life, regardless of my bank balance or my job title? The answer slowly began to emerge. Success, for me, came to mean living in accordance with my values, being an honest, brave, and kind person, having the ability to learn and grow from adversity, building deep and meaningful relationships, contributing, in some way, to making my little corner of the world a bit better. Do you see the shift? All these new criteria for success are almost entirely within my dichotomy of control. I cannot guarantee I'll be rich, but I can choose to be honest every day. I cannot guarantee I'll be famous, but I can choose to be kind to the supermarket cashier. I cannot guarantee I'll have power, but I can choose to be a good friend and an attentive listener. This redefinition doesn't mean abandoning external ambitions. You can still want the promotion, the bigger house, the recognition. But these things become a bonus, not the primary measure of your worth. Your real scoreboard is internal. You compete with yourself to be a better version of yourself each day. By doing this, you become invincible in the only game that matters. The world can take away your money, your job, your reputation. But no one can take away your character, your values, your integrity. As Viktor Frankl, a concentration camp survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, said, "The last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That is your true success. And it is immune to the injustice of the world. The practice of radical gratitude might seem like a paradox. How can one be grateful in a world that is fundamentally unfair? Gratitude in this context is not a denial of reality. It's not pretending that difficulties and inequalities don't exist. It is a deliberate choice of focus. Imagine your attention is a flashlight. In a dark and messy room, you can choose to point the flashlight at the dirt on the floor, the spiderweb in the corner, the peeling paint on the wall. Or you can point it at a beautiful painting on the wall, an interesting book on the shelf, the window showing the moon outside. The room remains the same. The dirt and the beauty coexist. The difference is where you point your light. For a long time, my flashlight was pointed at injustice. I focused on what I didn't have, on what others had that I didn't, on the difficulties of my path. The result was a constant feeling of lack and inadequacy. The practice of gratitude was the act of consciously turning the flashlight. I started simply. Every night before bed, I would list 3 things I was grateful for that day. At first it felt forced. I'm grateful for the hot coffee, for the sun that came out. But over time, my brain started to be trained to look for the good. I began to notice things that had previously gone unnoticed. The kindness of a stranger, a good conversation with a friend, The simple fact of having a roof over my head and food on the table, things that, for billions of people, are an unattainable luxury. Radical gratitude is the kind that can coexist with pain. You can be grateful for your health and, at the same time, feel the pain of a loss. You can be grateful for your friends and, at the same time, feel frustrated with your career. Gratitude doesn't erase the negative, but it puts it in perspective. It reminds us that even in an imperfect and unfair world, there are still islands of beauty, kindness, and blessings. This practice anchors us in the present and connects us with the abundance that already exists in our lives, instead of trapping us in the scarcity that injustice seems to create. It is a powerful antidote to the poison of resentment and envy, and a solid foundation for building an inner peace that does not depend on the world being fair to exist. Transforming envy into inspiration. Envy is a natural consequence of perceiving injustice. We see someone with an advantage we didn't have, achieving a success that seems undeserved, and the feeling that arises is corrosive. It's not fair that he has that and I don't. Envy diminishes and isolates us. But what if we could hack this emotion? What if, instead of letting it consume us, we used it as a map? The turning point happens when we replace the question, why him and not me, with the question, what can I learn from this? This shift moves us from a passive position of resentment to an active position of learning. I started practicing this. When I saw someone successful, instead of focusing on the unfair advantages they might have had, the birth lottery, I tried to identify the qualities and actions that were under their control and that I could admire or emulate. Maybe the person was extremely disciplined. Maybe they had exceptional communication skills. Maybe they were brave in taking calculated risks. Maybe they were a master at building networks. Suddenly, the person who was once a target for my envy became a source of inspiration, a case study. I didn't need to have their life, but I could learn from their work ethic. I didn't want their contacts, but I could be inspired to improve my own social skills. The negative emotion of envy, which once drained me, was transmuted into a positive energy of self-improvement. This doesn't mean ignoring systemic inequalities. It's important to acknowledge them. But on a personal, practical level, focusing on them is unproductive. By transforming envy into inspiration, you take back control. You stop comparing yourself destructively and start learning constructively. You use others' success not as proof of your inadequacy, but as a beacon that illuminates possible paths for your own growth, on your own journey with the cards you were dealt. Building your own justice. If we accept that the world at large is not fair, it doesn't mean we should be passive. On the contrary, it gives us a clear mission, to create pockets of justice in the only place where we have direct influence, our sphere of action. If you cannot fix the world's injustice, you can at least refuse to contribute to it. More than that, you can actively build the opposite. This starts with the small things. Be the coworker who gives credit where it's due instead of stealing the idea for yourself. Be the friend who listens without judgment and offers unconditional support. If you are a leader, be the boss who makes decisions based on merit and transparency, creating a fair environment for your team. If you are a parent, teach your children about empathy and equity through your own example. I realized that while I was lamenting the injustice out there, I was sometimes neglecting my responsibility to be just in here, in my daily interactions. It was a powerful revelation. The greatest statement I could make against the world's injustice was not to complain about it, but to live in a way that contradicted it. This gives us immense purpose. Your life becomes an act of quiet rebellion against chaos and inequality. Every act of kindness, every ethical decision, every moment of integrity is a brick you lay in the construction of a small sanctuary of justice. You may not change the whole world, but you can change the world for the people around you. And sometimes, that is the most impactful thing anyone can do. This practice takes us from the role of mere observers of injustice to the role of architects of justice. It gives us agency. It gives us power. Instead of feeling helpless in the face of vast inequality, we feel the deep satisfaction of knowing that, in our own small kingdom, the rules are different. In our kingdom, kindness matters, honesty is the law, and justice, however small, prevails. So, we come to the end of our reflection. And the truth that remains is this: the world is not fair. And perhaps that is the most liberating discovery of all. Because as long as we wait for the world to be fair, we remain hostages. Hostages to luck, to circumstances, to the decisions of others. We live in a state of waiting, of hoping, and, inevitably, of disappointment. But when you accept reality as it is, you set yourself free. You stop wasting your precious energy fighting what you cannot change and redirect it to what you can: your character, your choices, your attitude. You stop measuring your worth by the warped measuring stick of external success and start measuring it by the integrity of your inner journey. Think about it now. What injustice has been weighing on your shoulders? What resentment have you been carrying like a stone in your pocket? Imagine for a moment dropping that stone, feeling the lightness. What would you do with this new freedom? With this released energy? Where would you invest it? Acceptance is not the end of the line, it's the starting point. It's the solid foundation upon which you can build a life of purpose, resilience, and inner peace, not in spite of the world's injustices, but because of your ability to navigate them with wisdom. I want you to share in the comments. What was the biggest lesson you learned from dealing with an injustice in your life? How did you find the strength to move forward? Your story might be the light someone else needs to find their own way. Let's continue this journey together. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and don't miss our next meetings. Wisdom is a path we walk step by step. And the best, as always, is yet to come.